kids paint set, that's great. This works too. You can also use liquid watercolor paints. They'll come in tubes and it says watercolor on there. They work just like regular watercolors, only you don't have to add as much water. They dry just like these, so it's the same stuff. So if you have your watercolors, that's great. Watercolor paper you can get anywhere. And then what you're going to want to do is transfer the outline or the template that we've put down in the comments below here or in the album on my Facebook page. And you're going to want to put this template onto your watercolor paper. So you can do that through, your copier. You can do it with graphite paper or just by using your eye. Okay, so once you have that, you're going to also need some brushes. Today we're just going to use a medium-sized brush and a small brush. And I am also going to use my white paint pen a little bit at some point. You'll also need, the only colors you're going to need are black and brown. That's it. So the only brown we're going to use is just around his eyes here. So really, truly, it's mostly black and white. So the variation in tone here or in shade has everything to do with the water. So water, black paint, and your template. And a little bit of brown for his eyes. Or if you want to get wild and crazy, you could have a rainbow zebra or a blue zebra or a purple zebra, whatever you want. But I'm doing black. We're going realistic here today. Okay, so let's get started painting. All right. Now, you'll notice before we start, I always do this, we need to have a little overview about how to make this painting happen. Okay, this template looks a little confusing, and there's a lot of lines, right? So we want to be careful about where we're putting our paint and where we're not putting our paint. Obviously, there's what you call negative space. That's the white part here, and that is really basically making up the base of our zebra. So we want to put the black in the lines where they're enclosed. If you mess up, if you start painting in the wrong spot, it's going to be okay. We're going to just make lines. We're going to make zebra stripes. All right. So we're just going to start putting the lines all over his face. Okay. We're going to just do these black lines. And after we are done with that, we'll go up into the ears. The ears are a little bit more, saturating the paint. It's not as perfect lines. And then down here, once we get the lines here, we're going to put a lot of water on his snout, and we're going to tip our paper this way, and we're going to allow that paint to kind of drip down into the lines. And it's kind of cool because it usually does follow where the paint has already been put. So it's kind of fun. So that's kind of the idea. We'll do the eyes last. Okay? All right. So I'm using a number 1 brush. You could use any medium-sized brush. And we're just going to go in with black, and we're going to start filling in all these little spaces. Okay, so I have a lot of water on my brush, you can tell. So look, it's very gray. I don't want that. I want it black. So I'm going to go back in and get more paint. Still not enough. But I'm going to go in and just kind of fill these spots in, and I'll go back in with more. So you want to have your lines be flowing. So that's the kind of the trick. You want to have enough water on your paintbrush to allow it to flow and move across the paper smoothly, but you don't want it so much that it's degrading your paint. Degrading sounds pretty intense. It's diluting your paint more than what you want. Okay, so we'll just keep working on it. Okay, working on getting that right texture. Now, we might just need to go in and do more than one layer of paint. Black is one of those pigments that it can either really take over, or it can be hard to get enough pigment to make it nice and strong, you know what I mean? So just continuing, this is going to be one of those filling in the blanks kind of paintings. I did put a lot of detail on the outline just because, yeah, it's a complicated one, but with the outline you'll be able to really just follow along, follow the lines. Okay. Filling in all the spaces. Hope everybody's doing well. Feels like it's been a while since I've been doing a painting, but I know most of you are, going back and painting along with me from previous sessions, and that's great. If you can paint whenever you want. Sometimes it's hard to find the time, but kind of the point of why I'm doing this is it's important to find the time, I think. It's not necessarily important to paint. It's important to find time to be creative and allow ourselves to calm our minds and really focus on one thing for a little while. It's very good for our minds, and it's good for our spirits to put our brains in that state of flow, they call it. And you can feel like time kind of just goes by and you didn't realize that time was going by. It's one of those things. That's the point of why we're doing this. Painting is one of those things you can just put your mind to one thing, and as you're doing it, your brain is also working on a bunch of other things in the background. So it's a healthy thing. I started painting again. I took some classes in college when I went to Bethel University in Minneapolis. And I did, I loved it in high school. And I've always been, artsy, crafty person, but mostly did music for a long time. And then once I started having babies and I was home and alone a lot, I kind of had been doing music for so long that, you start getting in a routine of using your giftings, and that brings you certain places, that brings you to a place where you can use your gift. Like, I was in a group, it was a ministry group, and they said all the time that your gifts open doors for you, and that's very true. Like, a lot of the things that I've gotten to do have been because, things that I had giftings in. I'm talking away and I just started painting the wrong thing. So don't follow me, but if you did follow me, we're just going to make some new lines here because this one was supposed to be a space and I painted it. So I'm going to continue this way and just make the line around it. Just use your imagination. How could this work? Anyway, so I had gotten in a habit of using music as an outlet, as the gift that I was giving the world, and that was great and that was fine. But then I found myself home with children, little babies, and music I could do, at church or whatever, but it wasn't an ongoing everyday thing for sure. And I needed a thing to do. I needed an outlet. So I started painting. And in college, I remember just painting and painting into the night. Like, I just loved it. It would really make my brain zone into it. So I started doing it again and did it. So I did it because it was good for me. It was something I enjoyed and I kind of needed for my sanity. My husband noticed it and he encouraged that in me. So he went and rented a space so that I could go and paint at a little studio. It was just this dingy little room. But it was mine and it was somewhere to go. So all that to say, I started out doing painting because it was good for me. And nobody saw any of that painting for a while, you know. It wasn't for that. So right now we're all in our homes and we're painting alone, and that's okay. You know, that's good. We're not painting for anyone else at this point. We're painting for ourselves to learn and to have an outlet. Then who knows, it can become more. I never thought I would be selling paintings. I was working on a commission just now before I came on here. It's fun. But art has a lot of reasons for it, you know, a lot of reasons to do art. Let me see here, which is which. This is supposed to be black here. Okay, if you are getting confused, you know what, you just make it your own. I'm doing the same thing. All right. There's no real technique that we're learning this time around. It's not a lot of blending at this point. We'll go in and do some cool stuff in a little bit, but right now we're just making lines. We're filling in the lines. This is the perfect time to just let yourself zone. I know I'm talking your ear off, but I truly believe that when you allow your brain to kind of calm itself like this and zone out into doing something else, something productive even, making something. Sometimes they say that it can work when you're like playing chess or doing a sport like running. Anyway, I find that that's when I can hear the Spirit speaking to me the best. Because my mind is calm and another place in my spirit is awake. And I'm listening for the next step in my creativity. I'm listening to where I'm going to go. What's the next step here? How do I make this next thing? Lots of philosophizing going on. But I just truly think that that's what we're made for. We are made in the image of a great creator, right? However, that creation is ongoing, right? Okay, so this is one of my favorite animals because it's just so graphically cool. I love black and white anyway. My mom would always tease me that if you give me a can of black spray paint, I might just redecorate the whole house with it. I would just go for it. Paint all kinds of things black. I've never been kind of a pastel kind of person. I like the strong contrast. So zebra, you know, it's perfect for that. So filling in these lines. You've noticed that I've kind of gotten the hang of how much paint and how much water. See how you kind of learn as you go what the feel is and how much paint you need and how much water you need. Learn as you go. Last night we had a book study. I really use that word lightly because it's really not a study, it's more of a conversation. We read the book and discuss it, right? It's a book club, that's more like it. Anyway, it's the book is The Artist's Way, and I have people who have subscribed to a thing called Patreon, and they're kind of a part of an online community that is just delving into their own creativity and sharing that with me, sharing that with each other. So we had some good conversations last night. We were talking about chapter 2 in The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. And she was talking about how sometimes when a creative person comes to having a block, feel like, oh, I know I should be working on something, or I have this desire that I want to create this thing, or I want to write this book, or I have a blog I need to write, or I have this business that I'm trying to build, or I have a painting I want to paint, or whatever the thing is. You start allowing other things to take precedence because for a lot of reasons, but the one part that really convicted me last night when we were reading it was, she said, if you think about it, what are you getting out of that? What is it that you're getting out of the procrastination or the resistance for being everything that you've been created to be? What are you getting out of that? Sometimes we can think of ourselves as, a victim of, well, I have to take care of my family and I don't have enough time. And she said, well, is that really true? Or does it keep you safe so you don't have to put yourself out there and nobody's gonna judge you because you haven't put anything out there? Or do you have friends in your life who you've allowed to be in your life, or family members, I guess, who don't encourage you to be creative and be who you're meant to be? Maybe they like it that way, and maybe you like it that way because you don't have to work hard at becoming, It's really convicting. And she was like, have you been the person that's been saying, oh, don't worry about it, just selfish to try to make something? It's selfish. You should be a better mom. Oh, I'm not like that because I'm a better mom. I take care of my children. How could you focus on your children and be working on that? All kinds of attitudes that you don't realize you might be responding to. Anyway, it was a good talk. Okay, were you continuing on? Everybody okay? It's a lot of filling in. I'm going to turn my paper around so that I can reach in here without touching wet paint. All right. Oops, need more water. My son just got home from work. Good old Chick-fil-A. Okay, and as you get to these the top of some of these lines here, you'll see that they're very pointed toward the end, and I think that kind of looks nice, and that it allows for that little tapering off. It doesn't look like a block, it looks more like it's tapering up into the white. So the way you do that is make sure you use a tip of your brush. If you have watercolor brushes, they usually have very fine tips. And as you go to the end of the line, you're going to lift your brush so that it just gets smaller and smaller, and you don't have a big chunk at the end. Now as we get toward the eye here, the eye is going to be surrounded by black, and this line coming out of down from the eye is coming out of that black. I'm just going to leave that for later, but I will just go up to the eye like that. We'll finish that eye later. It's a whole other thing. While we're at it, we'll just continue doing these lines. And then when we get to the eyes, we'll really focus on how to get those eyes to look right. Okay. Because no matter what you're doing, even in animals and in people and painting people, but animals too, if you don't get the eyes right, our brains just pick it up right away. You know, we're just really sensitive to the right dimensions and the right perspective. What's the word? When they're balanced correctly, you know what I mean. All right. Now as we get down to the bottom of this face here, the black lines kind of, I allowed them to go along the edge of his jaw so that it's defined, rather than having the lines end and then having the white, because it just kind of needs to be defined for the painting. So allow those lines to just go along, and then once we get down here, I'm just going to follow this line to the mouth area. I'm just going to
While you're dipping your brush in two blacks, what is that?
Two blacks?
Why are you dipping your brush in two blacks?
It's over here. Yeah. Okay, this. Okay, the question is that why am I dipping my brush into two different blacks? I'm thinking that you're saying this pot here, and then this over here. So this pot is where the paint is. Over here, I'm putting it just on the pan and putting water in it until it's the right consistency. So this is the same black as this. I'm just using it to kind of feel the brush and the water to make sure that it's the right consistency. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I'll pull from here, but then if I'm running out of paint, I'll pull from here. If that makes sense. Okay. Thank you for asking that question. It's not one that I would have intuitively thought of, so I appreciate the question. Okay, so I pulled this black line over to the mouth area. We're gonna go back in later and put more water and paint in there, but for now we'll just leave it like that, okay? So continuing with the black lines up into the face. If you have a more traditional, what they call a half pan watercolors, you might just have kind of a little cake of the paint and not really any area to do this. Use the lid or any kind of a little plate or something like that so that you can kind of feel it out. It's a really helpful little thing to do. Because like I said, I was trying to get my water consistency right at the beginning, and so now I'm filling that out. You can kind of feel on your brush and kind of see how it looks to know that, oh, I need more paint on my brush or it's going to just be gray. Okay. Or, oh, that's not wet enough, it's not going to glide smoothly. You know, those are the things. So most zebras don't have this wiggly of a line, but I thought it's kind of a cool look, so I just made them wiggly. If you want to make them straight, you can. It would be fine too. Okay. Following it down. As we get closer and closer to the middle here, those lines are getting thinner and thinner. So you might want to use a smaller brush as you go. Just go slower. You get a little bit more detail. I don't know about you, but we've had a lot of time lately to be in our yard and do yard work, and it's kind of springtime. Everything's growing and overgrowing. There's one bush in our yard that I've usually always pruned back every year, but I didn't this year. And it's doing well. It's just growing from the larger, it was already 6 feet tall, and now it's growing leaves back on its branches. It's not branches, it's like a bush. Anyway, it's going to be big. It's going to be a big bush now because I didn't prune it back. Anyway, side note. So we've been in our yard a lot, and I was noticing today just all the beauty and all the different kinds of birds and the different bird songs and the squirrels. And I just thought, oh, it's just inspiring to me to just be out in nature and see that there's beauty everywhere we look. Just Amazing beauty. Those birds don't know what's going on in the world. They're as happy as can be. Well, some of them weren't happy. Some of them were fighting, probably. I think I saw some squabbles today. But they're in their world and they're taken care of. You know. The squirrel tried to get on the bird feeder and it zinged off. When you look around, beauty's everywhere. We also, for school today, we homeschool, so well, everybody's homeschooling right now, but so we kind of finished everything. We always get to this point in the year where we have all our curriculum is a set, number of days. That's just how they make them, And then by April, we've kind of gotten ahead and we're done with a lot of the curriculum, but there's still school days to fill. So we've been working on going through some master classes, which is, some of them are really kind of hard to watch, and then some of them are amazing. So we started watching this one about this astronaut is talking, and I can't remember his name. I wish I could remember his name. He was on Saturn V, and of course, they have to be brilliant to be astronauts. They have to know so much. Scientists and mathematicians and everything. But he is also a master storyteller. It makes me feel like I was there. He was explaining how he was going up how they go up in the rocket, and he's telling them driving up to the rocket and what it felt like, and you could see it from afar, and what was going on in his mind and his heart, and just amazing. And then he's also just in awe that he got to go to space, and he's talking about the beauty of the Earth, looking down at it, and the beauty of the moon, and the beauty of space, and the darkness, and just it's cool to see such a smart man, such a brilliant, man talk about beauty and being just grateful for it. He's aware. It's just like he's awake, Super inspiring. Inspiring to be a wholehearted person. I don't think it's inspiring my boys to want to be astronauts. They're not interested. They're like, no way, that's craziness. But man, inspired to be a wholehearted person and do something like that amazing, to go from Earth into space and to the moon. I know, we all know, we've all grown up knowing they do that, but oh my gosh, just going there with him really made it real. I appreciated his communication style. He's really, really good storyteller. Okay, oops, I've got one more down the middle. Ooh, I got paint everywhere. Okay, sometimes we do watercolors, and it's really loose. And then today, this is a little bit more of a detail-oriented painting. Lots of details and straight lines, smooth lines anyway. And the more detail you can make in this kind of painting, allowing the little bumps and the little lines to end precisely with an upward tick, you know, that's going to make this painting really pop. Just be nice and methodical, slow. Okay, so we've got all our lines down, okay? So I'm going to go into the ears now, and you'll notice that I have a bunch of little hairs coming out of the side from these black lines that we've had already. Out of this area, this is kind of where the hair is starting, so we're going to kind of come up through here and have hairs coming into the ears that way. So you'll notice that there's variation. There's really black lines, and then there's some lighter gray lines. We want that variation, because that's what happens in life. It's not all plastic. And the way we're going to do that is with water. So we'll make some stark lines, and we'll also make some more watery lines with less paint on our brushes, okay? So I'm going to go in with more water on my brush first and have kind of a gray color. I'm just going to put a layer of gray hairs coming up out of this little black spot here and all the way to the top. We want it to kind of go off the edge because his ears are actually taller than what we've got here. So he went off the side. So we're just going to use watery gray color to make those first lines. And we're lifting our brush as we get to the end so that they kind of taper off, right? So they look like hair. All right. And we're coming from this side, doing the same thing. There are a few little lines on the template that will help guide that. Okay. So these are just gray lines coming from that black there. Okay. So now I'm going to go in with a little bit more paint on my brush with a little more black and do the same thing on top of those gray lines. This is too wet. I'm coming over here. If it's too wet, it'll just turn gray again, right? If the paper had too much water on it. So see, we're just lifting as we go, allowing those hair-like brush strokes, okay? Going back in with some darker hair up here. And the hair can kind of be windy, doesn't need to be straight. Let it flow a little bit. All the way to the tip, all the way to the top. We'll use some white. Let some light come through the hair. Okay, going in with black again on this side. Okay, so if you have a bunch of tick marks along the side here, I would say just kind of make that line nice and smooth again on either side where those lines, where these hair lines kind of started, you know, you want to have that, just go over that so that it doesn't look like you can see where the brush started. Okay. All right, so we've got some hair, we've got some hairy ears. So now here, you'll notice we have, this is where the neck ends. So we have that line there, and then the stripes continue up into the mane. So we're gonna put some hairs coming. This part is also hair, right? So we want to have some lighter gray lines going up in between the black lines so that the hair looks like it continues all the way across that mane. But it's going to be lighter gray so that we don't mix the black and white. So I'm just going to go in with a little bit of gray and just make some hair mane structure in there. Just like that. Watercolors will dry lighter than when you put them on, so it's okay. So here is the top of the neck, and what we're going to do is add some gray, a little bit darker than the hair, but light. And we're going to go along that neck area like that and make a little line. And then I'm going to use water and just pull some of that paint down like a little shadow so that it'll delineate that that's the neck and that's where the hair starts. Does that make sense? Okay, kind of pull that gray down in there. See how that goes? It just gives it a little bit of line so that it shows where his neck starts. Okay. All right. I'm going to continue to do a little bit more of that shadowing. We're going to put more shadows down here, and really just we're going to put a little bit of black paint on, and we're going to just watery paint go up into the neck a little bit. You'll see that we've done kind of that down over here. We've got a little bit of shading going in there. See how it's not all stark black and white? So in order to make the shape nice and rounded looking, this would be the lightest part of the neck, and there would be shadow underneath here and shadow right by the mane. There'd be shadows in his ears that wouldn't be bright white inside of his ears, right? So we're going to add some shadows in there. Shadows along under where his ears are, shadowing over. Put some shadows under his eyes, see, because there's eyelashes and lids. Okay, a little bit over here. And then we're going to go into the snout and kind of play with water. Okay, so shadows now. This is the shadow stage. We did a little bit here. We're going to do more down here. So I'm not putting any more paint on my brush. My brush is still wet and has a little bit of gray on it. I'm just going to go in like this and pull some up like that, just with water. See how that goes? Now, if the water starts degrading the black lines, that's okay. We'll go back in and fix them. But we want to just pull them up, pull some water up into the neck so it looks like it's rounded. Okay. Same thing over here, there'd be a little bit of shadow here. Not so much water that it's flowing all your paint around, but just a little bit to just blend some shadows in there, okay? Also here, just blend a little bit of shadows. This water making a gray. Not putting any more paint, just water. Think about where shadows might be. Okay, I'm going to put a shadow under his eye here. I might need to go in and do that afterward as well, but it's a really light shadow. Maybe down in here as well. Okay. All right. Now for the nose, the snout. I'm going to put a little bit of black right around the outside of this nostril here, and around this nostril here, and kind of up along that spot. Okay. All right, now I'm not washing my brush very much. I just put some water on my brush, and I'm just going to go in and start making this all wet in here with that gray black, with the gray water. I'm going to bring it down over here because his little bottom chin. We're just going to go all around. The only part that I'm not putting water on is the very inside nostril areas. Okay, so allowing that water to just flow around. Okay, now this is a cool part. We're just going to let this water and put it all over. Now I'm going to tip my paper and I'm going to let that water flow down a little bit. It's mostly going to follow the lines that I've given it already with the black. But if I wanted to make it a little bit, see, it's hardly wanting to go down any other places, but it's going down there. I'm going to allow it to flow naturally down, just egging it along a little bit so that we get a little bit of drippy look. See that? That's about all we're going to do. I'm going to go on the edges here of the ends of these lines and kind of blend them in a little bit. I'm going to add a little bit of black on this. I might go back and make that a little more dark because it got really watered. Okay, so that's the snout. Nice and flowy, easy, right? Okay, eyes. The eyes, we want to just be a little precise about, just because, like I said, our brains pick up any weirdness when it comes to body structures. So, especially eyes. The eyes are the window to the soul. All right, so we've got a lot of water going on in the rest of the painting, but the eyes we haven't touched, so they should be nice and dry. Okay, I'm going to still use my number 1 brush. I'm going to get some brown paint. You can make the eyes any color, I guess. I'm making mine brown. Okay, and the brown goes in this little area, the iris. Is around that little line around the pupil. They have huge pupils, I guess. I don't know a whole lot about zebras, but when I was looking at paintings and pictures, that's what they look like. Okay, so just a little bit brown. All right. Now we're going to go in with black, and the black goes on all this whole pupil area, and it's going to go up and around. It's like they have natural eyeliner. I know it's not fair. Up and around here and down here. Now we want to leave some white, a little bit of white all along the bottom edge, okay, and the corners. So I'm going to go back in, and maybe I will use my tiny brush, my 0 brush. Like I told you before, I've kind of messed up my brush. I need to get new ones. But I left it in the water one day, and it turned. It's got a little bit of a little hook to it now, so I have to be careful when I use it. But I'm going to turn my paper around so I'm not touching wet. And the fan is blowing. Okay, so going in with the black around the eye like eyeliner, and in this pupil area. If you don't have a white paint pen, you're going to want to leave a little bit of a white space a little white spot. His eyes always have a reflection in them. They just do. If they don't have them, that reflection, it looks a little zombie-like. So unless you're going for a zombie zebra, which, you know, maybe you are. I know the little Hayden Hilscher would. We want to have that little white space. I got a little too close to my brown there, but good thing I have my white paint pen. I'm going to fix that in a little bit. All right. So that black line goes around, and the pupil is very black, so try to get it as black as you can. All right. Now the eyelashes don't go up. The eyelashes on these guys go down over their eyes. So it's kind of like a horse's eyelashes. They come down out the side here, and then they kind of have like a natural cat eye, but it's kind of going down. And then they come across all the way that way. Now the black is not going to show up on the black, but once we go in with a white paint pen, we'll be able to see those ones over the top of the eyeball. So we're just going to go down at maybe a 30-degree angle. Well, what would that be? Like a 45-degree angle? No, wait, 90 degrees. If that's up and down, it would be what, 80-degree angle? Oof, I don't know. If you're looking at 6, we're going to turn it to 5. That's what, I'm going to go to the 5. That makes more sense to me. Okay, so coming off this edge here, we're going to have a nice line coming down like a cat eye. And then we're going to let the tiniest little brush strokes coming down at that angle that I just said poorly. Coming down, okay. Consistency of paint and water is everything. I'm having a hard time right now. Not having enough water on my brush, and it's not flowing easily. Okay, so we've got some eyelashes. Okay, see how dead he looks? He looks dead in the eyes because he doesn't have any reflections yet. Okay, going to this eye now. This is kind of a half eye, kind of looking. It's always a little bit funky because you see part of the eye and it's bulging out the side. So we're going to just put the black pupil in. And the eyelid on this side, you notice there's a white line over here. This is kind of his eyelid. Here we had to draw it in because we don't have, we're not straight on. So I'm going to put a black line on the bottom part of that, that shape there that I drew. And then bring it down to this tip. I'm going to leave the white up here so that it can be his eyelid. See how that is? I'm allowing that to be white still inside. So he has an eyelid. Okay, I'm bringing it down to that tip and kind of coming up and underneath here. Okay, and we'll fill that eyeball in. I went over that brown too much. See if I can get over it. And then these eyelashes are kind of coming off of the side here, down into that angle again. All right. All right. Get it nice and black. Okay, we're getting to it here. Like I said, I want these nostrils to have a little bit more black, and now that it's been drying a little bit, I'm going to go in and put a little more black around the nostril area. Since it got all wet, it kind of depleted that black, so I want it to have a little bit more of a definition. So I'm going to go in with a little more black there. Okay, and then if we have any lines that have gotten a little bit watered down or less defined than you want them to be because we put water on top, you can go back in and kind of shape them up a little bit with your black paint. But really, some of it's kind of cool. You might want to make decisions as you go. It might be like, it might be a cool little thing to leave here because it looks watery and neat. So you just make those decisions as you go. It surprises me every time how fast I can do this with you because I've done it already. I've already created a painting, and the first time you're making all the decisions from scratch, it takes a lot longer. Okay, we're going to go back in with my white paint pen. Handy dandy. If you don't have a white paint pen, you can use white paint, or you can just skip this stage, this step. It's just fine. Maybe you can maybe try using a white colored pencil. Sometimes those can go over watercolor paints. Okay, so white paint pen is what I have. It's from Artistro, and it's just called a paint marker pen. You can get them in all different colors. I got a pack of, I think, 6 white ones on Amazon for like $6. Okay, so I'm going to go in here and I'm going to put a reflection in his eyeball. Couple dots. And I'm going to put something similar over here. All right, I'm going to put a little bit, usually right in that spot of the eye, there's usually a little shininess there, so I'm going to put a little dot there. And then these guys have whiskers, so I'm going to put a few little whiskers on his nose, just randomly. And not a whole lot, just a little bit. What else could I do with this white paint pen? Oh, like I said, I got a little bit too close here with the brown, so I'm just going to bring that up a little bit so that his white of his eye goes all the way around. You can fix things. All right, and then the other thing you can do with this white paint pen on this guy, you could define his eyebrow a little bit. And then I went in and I put some eyelashes coming down with the white, because you couldn't see them with the black, but the white kind of shows up. So that's another thing you could do. Kind of, because those eyelashes go all the way across, right? Okay, so that's your zebra. Feel free to mess around with it as much as you want to. You can make it your own. Do whatever you feel. But I certainly had a good time making it, and I hope you did too. Fun zebras, wild and crazy, black and white, my favorite. So thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks for creating something pretty and beautiful. And I certainly hope that you had a peaceful time, that your creativity was flowing, and there's just something about allowing that creativity to come out of us. We're made for it. So as we walk in the world, letting it be coming out of us is the goal. Whatever shape that comes in, whether it's painting, whether it's creating your home, whether it's creating a computer program, whatever, all the things that we can do. We've been made in the image of the great Creator, and we are satisfied and fulfilled when we walk in that too, in creativity. So, grace and peace and wholeness to you and your whole households, and have a good night.